Welcome to Movie Time in 5. My name is Brian Hayes, and each week I'll provide an almost 5-minute spoiler-free look at a horror or sci-fi movie recently released in theaters, on iTunes, or one of your favorite streaming services such as Netflix or Amazon Prime. This week we'll be discussing a movie that I have been clamoring for since the original The Strangers movie disturbed me, in a good way, all the way back in 2008, starring Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, as they battled the murderous, psychotic family made up of Man in the Mask, Pinup Girl, and Dollface. The sequel, The Strangers 2, titled Pray at Night, has finally come to fruition and released in theaters on March 9th, 2018. So let's dive into Strangers 2, Pray at Night. There is no sense of when this movie takes place in regards to the first Strangers movie, but the location is now a secluded mobile home park called Gatlin Lake Getaway, an eerie ode to Camp Crystal Lake. For the four protagonists in this movie are a family of four: Mike the father, played by Martin Henderson, Cindy the mother, played by Christina Hendricks, and the two children, Kinsey and Luke, played by Bailey Madison and Lewis Pullman. The movie begins as the family departs their home, heading on a road trip to drop off the troubled Kinsey at boarding school, given her problematic behavior. Along the way, the family decides to drop in and spend the night in a secluded mobile home park run by their Uncle Marvin. Given the time of year, the trailer park is basically deserted. Note, I said basically deserted. As the family arrives and picks up their keys off the desk, with their uncle leaving a note saying he will see them in the morning, the camera pans to the mailbox outside the trailer park office, showing a red happy face, which triggers us, the audience. The strangers are already there. As the family settles into their cabin, a knock at the door startles them, and as Cindy opens the door, the iconic phrase that haunted us all who watched the original The Strangers, uttered by a creepy shadow girl at the door, "Is Tamra there?" The following 60 minutes is another lesson in secluded and creepy, well-designed and executed atmospheric terror as the family squares off against the hunters. So, what does this movie do well? Well, first, the atmosphere, low-lying fog, and cinematography, as well as the score that plays throughout the movie, drives a sense of both creepiness and intense tension throughout the entire movie. It's clear that director Roberts has been influenced by John Carpenter, as the spare music, staid camera movements, and use of darkness reflect the master's deft craftsmanship. The Strangers Pray at Night features some of the more striking and intense visuals this side of 1983's Christine, including one scene on a bridge involving a flaming truck and another long shot across a swimming pool that will most certainly appear in your nightmares. Second, the acting is above average, but in my opinion, Bailey Madison steals the show with her vast breadth of emotions that she experiences throughout, from anger and rebel to survivor and leader, as the movie and terror unfolds. Finally, and while the film does possess its share of admittedly cheap scares, those masks, Pray at Night gets far more traction from its mood, its pacing, and its overall skillful filmmaking than many of its other horror films of its ilk. So what does this movie struggle with? Although the three masked killers are terrifying, this movie doesn't capture the level of terror, in my opinion, and pacing that the original The Strangers did. And some of that is simply not being able to capture something that was magical the first time around. The finale also is drawn out with some ridiculous turns at the end of the flick, and had some clunky jump scares that the first movie just did not have. So, what would I rate The Strangers 2 Pray at Night? I would give this movie a solid 7.5 out of 10, whereas the first movie I would give an 8.5 to a 9. If you're a fan of the first The Strangers movie, I would recommend seeing this in theaters. If you're bothered by a serial killer murder movie with intense brutality, this, just like the first The Strangers, is one that you should pass on. So I hope you've enjoyed this Movie Time in 5. You can find me on Twitter at BrianHayes73. Until next week, do your heart some good and get scared. Especially if someone comes knocking on your door looking for Tamra. Bye, friends.